This is Michael Popok with a Legal AF Trump on trial hot take. There's some real lawyering that broke out today in the courtroom as both the prosecution and the defense tried to move to rest their cases. The prosecution was the more masterful one. It had to do with trying to refute in the jury's mind the suggestion that was created by cross-examination of Michael Cohen last week that the phone call he made to Keith Schiller, the oft-mentioned bodyguard for Donald Trump, the same guy who stood in front of the hotel room while Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump had their sex act, to put it mildly. There's an issue that was raised, a question that may have been raised in the minds of the jury by Todd Blanche in cross-examination of Michael Cohen last week, that perhaps the phone call from 8 years ago that Michael Cohen remembers making that included Donald Trump being told point blank that Michael Cohen resolved the Stormy Daniels issue by paying her, i.e. linking Donald Trump directly to the body of evidence in this case that is at the heart of this case. It's one of the few direct links to Donald Trump, the Stormy Daniels conspiracy, and Michael Cohen that perhaps, as Todd Blanche suggested, he was mistaken about the phone call. Todd Blanche left the impression before the break in the weekend, based on answers by Michael Cohen, that perhaps that phone call was to Schiller directly without Donald Trump involved, that they weren't even together that day, Trump and Schiller, and that the phone call that Michael's misremembering, Todd Blanche's phrase, is about a call that Michael had about some teenager that was harassing Michael Cohen by way of social media, and he wanted the bodyguard to put an end to it. But that's not what Michael Cohen said. Michael Cohen said, I also remember on that same call, Schiller handing the phone to Donald Trump and me telling Donald Trump in 30 seconds or less that the Stormy Daniels payoff had been done. Key issue for the prosecution. Well, over the weekend, the prosecutors figure out how to solve the problem. They found footage on the very day when the phone call took place on October 24th, 2016, that's how far back this was, of Schiller, bodyguard, with candidate Trump in the same event as shown on C-SPAN. So, in order to get that into evidence, you can either do one of several things. You can ask the judge to take some sort of judicial notice of this public video, what the judge was unwilling to do because the judge saw this as a hearsay problem. In other words, you can't cross-examine the video. You need to bring in somebody that is responsible for the maintenance of that video, that had custody of that video, right? That the chain of custody was unbroken, that the video was from the cameras of C-SPAN, and that it was kept in the archive. Like, you need an archivist. So the CNN archivist would need it, according to the judge, if you want to put this on, unless the other side agrees, which at first they weren't going to agree, you'll have to recall the C-SPAN archivist and bring him to the stand, Robert Burning. But the archivist lives in Louisiana. But what this video would show is that on the day of the phone call, the very phone call that Michael Cohen testified about, he was right. Donald Trump was right next to Schiller, the bodyguard. They were together, which now makes it easy for the jury to understand and find that Todd Blanche's cross-examination is full of water, that Schiller, after hearing the story about the 14-year-old girl, texting whatever, Michael Cohen, handed the phone to his boss, and Michael Cohen told him in code word or whatever about Stormy Daniels. The video of them being together on that day is important. So what is the masterful presentation issue? Either the prosecutors looked the defense in the eye and said, if you make us go through this extra hurdle, we're going to go get the C-SPAN archivist, fly him here from New Orleans or Louisiana, put him back on the stand and introduce that video and play that video in front of the jury to show that your cross-examination was fake and that you insulted the jury's intelligence. And finally, Susan Necklace and Todd Blanche, lawyers for Donald Trump, saw that they'd been checkmated by the prosecution and agreed to a compromise. The compromise was, while Michael Cohen was still on the stand, and he rapped today during what's called redirect, meaning the prosecution put Michael back on the stand to clean up some issues that had happened during cross-examination, that they would be able to enter through Michael a stipulation between the parties, prosecution and defense, a stipulated photograph. a video still from one part at the end of the video on October 24th, 2016 at 7:57 p.m., one still that showed Trump together with his bodyguard on the day the phone call was made by Michael Cohen. So they brought it in with Michael Cohen. Do you know what this is? Yes. Who's on the left? Keith Schiller, bodyguard. Who's on the right? Donald Trump. What's the date on it? And they read the stipulation to the jury on with today's date on it. May 20th, 2024, the parties agreed that this would come in as evidence. And it came in through Michael Cohen, which is a great advantage to the prosecution because it tied it right together in front of the jury all at the same time that Michael was telling the truth, that all that bluster and all that acting out and all that anger from Todd Blanche, we don't want to know what you think. The jury demands to know what you know. All that happened last week, all that phony bravado, all came crumbling down today with the CNN exhibit number 417 or whatever it was, as Michael Cohen says, yep, that's Schiller, that's Trump, yep, that's the day that I called them, which completely makes perfect sense for this jury that the phone call Michael Cohen testified to really happened, a key piece of evidence for the prosecution. The case is now ended. We now have, and we'll be doing a wrap-up later today about it, prosecution rested. Did not call another witness after Michael Cohen, although they were ready, willing and able, or they played poker, right? They played bluff poker and won about the archivist. For all I know, when Josh Steinglass told the judge, we're going to get, for the prosecution, we're going to get the archivist from C-SPAN here. Who knows? If you picked up his phone, it might have been the time and the weather. Hello. Yes, Judge, we have him right here. Yes, he'll be on a plane if we need him. And that freaked out the prosecution because they made a decision to try to make some sort of lemonade out of lemons, that they'd rather not have the whole video played through the archivist for a jury at rapt attention watching every move. They'd rather just have one still from that day establishing that fact coming through Michael Cohen because they were about to lose. Whether the prosecution was bluffing or not, whether they really could get the guy on the plane. I mean, this is like right out of a Grisham novel. This is right out of a movie from the 1990s, some sort of Gene Hackman and Demi Moore or something movie. We have the archivist. It'd be ironic with all the effort and all the attention that's been placed on Michael Cohen, if when they poll the jury after they convict or exonerate, and I think convict Donald Trump, and they ask him, what was the key pieces of evidence that you relied upon? And we're all waiting for like David Pecker, the National Enquirer, publisher, editor, or Michael Cohen, or Stormy Daniels, or something like that. And they go, well, there were two key pieces of evidence. One was the accounts payroll supervisor for the Trump organization, and the other was the C-SPAN archivist. We'd be like, wow, because you never really know. I've been trying cases for a long time. You never really know which piece of evidence is going to resonate. I mean, certain cases that all right, that video, that audio, that document, that's going to be the one that's going to register with the jury. But when you've got 20 total witnesses that have testified over 4 weeks and hundreds of pieces of paper, you don't quite know what's going to happen with them. I mean, this is a human, this is an organism. This is there's an organogram about how a jury operates when they get together. They were strangers before, but now they're galvanized together into one moving, non-monolithic group called a jury. 12 of them. And as Tim Parlatore, the lawyer for Donald Trump, recently said on CNN, Donald Trump's opinion doesn't matter. None of the lawyers' opinions matter. The only opinions that matter are those 12. And you're never quite sure which one's going to resonate. So I wouldn't be shocked if they say, well, we like David Pecker, but it was that CNN's, the aha moment. If you're going to go for an aha moment, if you're going to go for a CSI Miami Perry Mason moment by Todd Blanche, where you make it very theatrical. And then, sir, where were you on the day of October 24th, 2016? You weren't possibly, I don't know why I'm using a British accent. You weren't possibly on a phone call with Donald Trump. And you don't know if Donald Trump and his bodyguard were even together. Do you, sir? And you sit down. You better hope to God that the prosecution doesn't have physical evidence that makes that entire cross-examination a never mind, which is what basically happened today. They were like, Cohen's going to go, yeah, that's the day of the phone call. Yeah, that's about the time I made the phone call. Yeah, that's the bodyguard and Donald Trump together. I mean, Todd Blanche must have physically shrunk in front of the jury. Like, this is so exciting. Even my dog came in for the hot take. Thanks, Lily. Thanks for the support. All right? He must have like, and all it does is what I've said before. Juries smell of fraud a million miles away. They want authenticity. They don't want to be talked down to. They want to be told things in a non-patronizing way. They want to be taught what the facts of the law are by somebody who they can trust. And then they want to deliberate and make their decision doing their civic duty. That's what juries do. And the opposite, you lie to a jury, you make promises in your opening statement you can't deliver on, which we're going to see tomorrow with the closing arguments, all the checks that Todd Blanche wrote that he can't cash and didn't cash during the course of this trial, this being one of them. The Schiller-Trump meeting with the phone call and the photograph is going to be run up their backside in closing argument by the prosecution tomorrow. Defense goes first, prosecution goes last in New York in criminal cases. They get the last word, and believe me, they're going to make Trump and Blanche and Necklace pay for all the promises that they made that they didn't deliver on in front of this jury. We'll continue to follow it all right here on the MeidasTouch Network. Where else? And on Legal AF on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And follow me, Michael Popok, on all things social media and MeidasTouch, MS Popok. Go over to this YouTube channel and look for contributors, playlist, Michael Popok. You'll find me there. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, boy, am I excited on this one. This is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.